This week we're going to talk about creating with ideating and prototyping. So in our oversimplified model of design, we're over here on create. Although I think ideation and prototyping can also help us explore and understand and evaluate. But for now, we're saying what's under create. So ideating is about trying to get broad ideas, breaking out of how we normally think so we can get a different type of solution or idea about something. So the most common form that you've probably done and had your students do or others do is brainstorming. When you just write down stuff with no judgment, you just write down things, it doesn't matter if it'll work or not, and you make a list. So I want you to try for 2 minutes to brainstorm about a need or problem that this is the general problem. Students are late to school every day. They're missing out on important instruction. So just take a piece of paper, take 2 minutes, and just brainstorm. Okay, even when we brainstorm, sometimes we still stay in a rut. It's hard to think of new things. And so these other approaches, and these are just some of them, can help us move beyond the rut or the place we're always stuck in. So we're just going to try a couple of these. So first is Scamper. And Scamper is about taking different ideas or different pieces of things and just playing with them in two different ways. So for example, you might look at your list of ideas that you just brainstormed, and you might combine two of the ideas together and see what that looked like. Or you might look for an object in the room like I don't have anything interesting here, a glasses case. And you might think, how can I have the glasses case help with my problem? Now, you probably aren't going to actually find the exact solution, but it can free up your thinking. So I want you to just maybe try some combining and see if you can write down 3 new ideas by using some of these different steps. And if you want more details about each of these, it's in your textbook. Okay, so an analogy is when we're just comparing something to something else. And the best analogies for ideation are totally opposite or different from what you're trying to ideate on. So let's go back to our situation where students are late for school a lot. How is that like a porcupine, a water bottle, a tree, a donut? Choose 2 of these and write, how is that situation like one of these? So analogies get us thinking broader about things and start looking at things from different angles. Another one that I really like that we're not going to do right now, but you can do for your ideating part of your project is the wrong theory protocol, where you actually try to find something that is truly terrible. And it's harder than you think to find something terrible. But it gets you thinking about things in a different way that can then help you find a beneficial idea. So you can see more about that in your book. There's a website you can see in our discussions, and you can use that as part of a project if you would like. Okay, so let's just take a quick step back. Let's say you're designing some type of instruction. You created some learning outcomes, and you're trying to decide the best way to meet these learning outcomes, what kind of instructional strategies. You're trying to frame a problem in different ways. You might do some ideating and then some prototyping to figure out what's going to work, and then evaluate what works, and then just continue trying things out. Prototyping is that point at which you're actually putting something into some type of form. It does not need to be a nice form. It's just some form. So if you take this quote, sometimes you think in order to act. Sometimes you act in order to think. You might have built something with Legos before. And when you build something with Legos, you just kind of start. You don't plan it all out ahead of time. You just start. Or when you build a sandcastle, you just start. And you figure it out and you think it out as you go. That is the main idea behind prototyping, that we're going to be creating things in order to learn. It actually overlaps a lot with ideating in many ways. These all overlap. So when we prototype, we're trying to process ideas in visual or tangible way, and it has to do with this relying on working memory. We only have so many ideas we can hold in our mind at a time. And so if we can externalize those ideas through drawings, through lists of words, through storyboards, that can help us look at them differently and free up our mind to think about other things. And then it also gives a way to get going without worrying about details or functionality. If you had to create a full website perfect the first time, it would take forever to get started, and then you wouldn't even know how well it would work until you program the whole thing. So it's a way to start doing some planning and such at a low fidelity level before you have to do it more formally. And so in instructional design, what these prototypes can look like are a little bit different than in like web design. So you might draw pictures, you might create an outline of something, you might create lists of things, you might put questions on post-it notes, and arrange them in different ways. You might create a storyboard of what a lesson might look like. So it might not even be in the format of what the final product is, but it might look at some aspect of it. You can use different digital technology tools like Trello, Miro, Padlet, Jamboard, something fun to explore, especially if you're collaborating with other people at a distance. Those are good things to use. But the idea is to get something out there in some form that you can then explore further. You can explore it by yourself, by having like self-reflection on it and different interaction with it. You can share it with stakeholders. So if someone's paying you to create this design, you can show them a mock-up of it and say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think this is going to work? You can actually show it to users, and you can watch how they interact or respond. So what a lot of user interface people do is they'll make a PowerPoint slide of what a user interface, like a web page, would look like. And they'll ask people, what would you click on first? Or watch to see what they try to click on, because that tells you a lot about how the user is going to interact with something. So you might show someone a worksheet or a picture or a guide and say, hey, where does your eyes go first? Or watch someone try to do a task with some instructions and see where they get lost. The idea is to be willing to try things out and put things out there before the final form, because that's how you're eventually going to get the best product. Alrighty, takeaways. We tend to get stuck on the same ideas and assumptions. Ideation helps us break out of that. And creating and trying out ideas is usually the best way to learn about it. Thanks for watching.